Hello, John. Here we are. A little bit of a
Hello,
hectic
Jason.
start. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It was very chill back in the green room. It was
Yeah.
all, blue, red, and yellow M&Ms. It was really just very chill. You know,
We've
I
got an
appreciate it.
excellent question, John, right out of the gate from
Whoa.
Dexter and friends. And I don't know who
Okay.
that is, but shall I read
All right.
this wonderful
Well,
YouTube comment to you?
but if it's intelligent, by all means. If it's either intelligent or funny, by all means, read it.
It's insightful. Dexter and
Aha.
Friends says, anyone else find it strange that Joe Napoli happened to be there? Wasn't he introduced to Jason via George Webb? That's correct, he was. And I do find it strange that he was there. One thing that people may not recall about Joe Napoli is that my final conversation with him was about Joe's claim to have made a financial contribution by credit card to Robert David Steele's Unrig campaign. You are aware that Robert David Steele sued me, and basically Joe said that he had made a contribution, came on the show, and was going to get his money back. And when the lawsuit began, I had called Joe and asked him if he could supply the credit card receipt from this transaction. And at first he said, oh, I'll look around for it or whatever. And then when I called him back and asked for it, what it eventually came to was Joe did not have the credit card receipt. And he told me he didn't have it. I said, well, can you call the
Mm.
credit card company and get it? And he just didn't have a good reason why he couldn't do that. I think you could probably call the credit card company and get something from as far back as 7 years. This was like 3
I
months.
just did it yesterday. I just
Right.
had a deal with the bank yesterday to do that exact thing. I had to get the old images of checks, actually.
Yeah, they
So
store that
I know,
stuff.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Joe was lying when he said that he had made a financial contribution to Robert David Steele. And I think that, as Dexter pointed out, Joe seems to have been part of George Webb's crew. So we're going to be talking today about a lot of funky stuff that went down in Las Vegas. We're going to be talking about social engineers. Since Las Vegas, John, information has come out in the public domain that causes me to believe that some of the people that we're talking about might even be FBI undercover operators, assets, employees. We don't really know.
I'm dumbfounded that what we consider the alternative media, and you guys, whether it's Stu Peters or whether it's Whitney Webb or whether it's Tracy Beans or Cernovich or Posobiec, or doesn't matter who it is that you guys follow and kind of pay attention to what they have to say. Many of them have expressed interest in the Las Vegas shooting and yet ignore all of this reporting. And I find that remarkably odd.
Suspicious,
So
even.
that's what I mean. It's like the one thing with Joe Napoli. So if, again, and he, by the way, Joe Napoli has that look, right? So
What
whether he
look?
is or isn't, I have no idea. They all look like spooks. The
Oh,
square
FBI
jaw.
look?
Yeah, that square jaw look. Whether it's FBI or CIA, I don't know.
Oh,
But they all
John,
look like that.
congratulations. 20,000 tweeters following you.
20,000 X's, right? X's or
X's, right.
zzz. So that's
Exactly.
exciting. I've got to, yeah, so I got to 20,000 zzz, so that's exciting.
That is.
Yeah, we've got some interesting slides, but what we're going to be doing tonight with the patrons is trying to answer the question on the first slide. And this is something that I posed earlier to the folks who follow me on Twitter. So if you want to go to the slide deck, I'll kind of set up what we're going to be doing with the patrons when we go to the patron only portion of the show, and we can kind of speak freely.
Sure. We've got slide 1 here. And oh, yeah, that also reflects. So that's good. Maybe Linda Yaccarino allowed you to grow. This is kind of back to your usual weekly growth on Twitter. Ah, yes.
All right. All right, so here's sort of the setup for tonight's show. What we're trying to explore is if the FBI, hypothetically, if the FBI lied about the Las Vegas shooting. In other words, they gave us this 2.5-page report, right? And if that 2.5 page report is not really what happened, and what they told the public was some sort of a story, well, how are we supposed to know when they're lying and when they're telling the truth? And like this seemed like a pretty big deal. We got 59 people were shot and
Actually,
killed
there's a
that night.
pretty easy way to
You
tell
know,
when they're lying, John.
yeah, they're
The
talking,
mouth
their
is
lips are
moving,
moving.
right?
Yeah, lips are moving. So, or Christopher Wray is in front of Congress. So the issue here is that if they are going to lie about something of this magnitude, meaning 59 people getting shot and killed that night, 2 more of the victims ended up dying afterwards of their injuries, and Stephen Paddock, who, based on the evidence that I've compiled, it doesn't appear that Stephen Paddock killed anybody. Now, I could be
Right.
wrong. But the evidence that I've got says, no, it doesn't look like he did what they're reporting that he did. And I'm basing it on the evidence, right? So all I'm wondering now with this notion for tonight's show is one of the things I keep hearing when Christopher Wray was testifying was they kept talking about opening up an inquiry. And they said that if somebody expressed concern about a phone call or this, that, or the other thing, they would open an inquiry. And it wasn't necessarily an investigation, but the inquiry is sort of the foreplay before the investigation.
The precursor to see if there's sufficient predicate to investigate.
Exactly. And so what I'm wondering is the evidence that we're going to share with our patrons tonight. Doesn't this kind of warrant an inquiry? And if it's the FBI themselves that covered it up, well, who the hell do you call? Who do you send your inquiry to if you want to audit an FBI field office? And if it turns out that, well, I don't know. Do you turn to another? Like, do we go to St. Louis? Do we go to Dallas? Do we go to another office and say, hey, those guys out in Las Vegas, it looks like, what do we do here? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
One of the things that we've learned since the October 1st, 2017 shooting from these congressional hearings and the various testimony from people is that this has been the shift in the FBI. It used to be that the field offices were sort of more empowered independently so that there was this kind of decentralized administration of the FBI. And, one of the things that retired guy who retired in 1999 said to Congress was that they also consolidated power in D.C. and made this like executive level FBI in D.C. kind of control the whole thing. And this guy said that has hurt the FBI for probably the same reasons you're talking about.
Well, and one of the ways that they can consolidate that power is they take key players from the FBI in Washington and they send them out to the field, like Aaron Rouse. So Aaron Rouse had been the head of counterterrorism at the FBI, and they sent him to run the Las Vegas field office. Okay? And then he's the head of the investigation, so to speak, into the Las Vegas shooting, and now he's retired. And Sheriff Joe Lombardo is now the governor. Now, one of the things that people want us to talk about is Sheriff Pelletier. And
right.
Sheriff Pelletier is the new sheriff on Maui. And he had been the head of 2 key units back during the Las Vegas shooting. So let's get real clear on what he was in charge of. People saying he was the chief of police or whatever.
Well, right. Is he the sheriff in Maui or he's the chief of police in Maui? I think sheriff was Vegas stuff, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's chief of police in Maui. Yeah. So in Vegas, his role was he was the head of SWAT.
Right.
So the Zebra 1, Zebra 2, Zebra 19, Zebra 20, those guys all reported into Pelletier. And the other group that reported to Pelletier was Bitsko, Newton, and the K9 team. So basically, it's Bitsko, Newton, and Levi Hancock all report to Pelletier. That's kind of a big deal. What that means is, or what that tells me, is this guy really is good at keeping a secret. and knows a hell of a lot about what actually happened that night.
Oh my God. Have you seen
What'd you
this?
find?
This is crazy. So this
What's it say?
is from 2021. New police chief wants to import successful Las Vegas programs to Maui. So killing people and covering it up, these type of things. It was very successful.
Again, this is the danger of the gaslighting. Is now we're living in a house of cards that's built on gaslighting. It's built on nonsense. It's built on things that didn't actually happen.
This is
And
him.
that's
Look
kind
at this guy. You know when you see these mafia movies where they got to go kill somebody in Florida or whatever, and it's like this New Jersey guy wearing some sunglasses and a hat, and he looks so out of place. What does this look like?
Yeah, I'm sure he hasn't made a whole lot of friends. So the net of it is one of the things that I've seen them do in Maui that is LVMPD like and Las Vegas shooting like. He put up a fence around
Right.
Lahaina. And the fence is just like the fence that they put up around the venue, where you couldn't see what the FBI was doing when they showed up to do the things that they were doing. And then when you and I went to the venue together, we had various fences. We visited twice together, I think. And each time we went, they had a different fence up, and new fencing and new blackout stuff. And they put up the same stuff in Lahaina.
Huh.
So this is in his repertoire.
Whoa, wait a minute now. Look at how high that fence is, a net wall. It's for dust, they're saying. Is it for dust or is it opaque?
I don't know. What the hell?
To keep
First
out
time saying
gawkers, it says. Oh, so
Is
they're
that
not.
the act? No, hang on. Is that a picture of the fencing in Lahaina, or is that
I
a
don't know.
file photo from the guys who make the fence of what they hope to sell you, which is something 40 feet tall? I don't know.
This says Maui Cruise installing fence around Lahaina, and that looks more like the fences I've seen.
Vegas.
That other one, you're right.
That's the
might have been-
Vegas fence. That's like the
Yeah.
Vegas fence. That's exactly the kind of fencing that we saw when we were at the venue. So he's using his playbook, and he can keep a secret. A lot of the footage that I've seen in Maui, the police are blocking off the intersections and sending people this way and that way. It just doesn't seem like they've got a real good sense of command and control. We see the fire engines moving. And as long as the fire engines are moving, they're not fighting the fire, right? If they're rolling down the road and somebody's driving the fire engine,
Right.
they're not spraying water at the same time.
Right.
They don't do that. It's not like the
Doesn't work
boats.
that way.
Right. So we see the fire engine. Remember, in previous shows, we looked at the fact that there's only 2 fire engines in Lahaina.
Right.
So we see them on video driving around. Well, that means they're not fighting the fire if they're
Well, I didn't
driving
see
from
that
point A
video.
to point B. Yeah. So I was watching some video. Again, those real estate guys are all gathering
Yeah.
all the footage from, and there were 2 young kids who ended up in the water. And watching that footage, you see the fire engines, but they're on the move, they're on the roll, and there's flames everywhere. So it's like, well, guys, if you're driving, you're not fighting the fire. So where are you going? Where did you just come from? Were you successful, or did you guys? How many of them got burned? How many of them got injured? Because usually you hear that
their houses
So,
burned down, they said.
well, that's tragic. But how many of the firefighters got licked with flames and got burned? I haven't heard a report on that. Have you?
I have
No.
not. And I just need to
That's
make
kinda
one
weird.
quick comment, John. I neglected to start the stream on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. So I apologize to John E.
Ooh.
Hoover YouTube subscribers. This video will play there immediately after the sponsor exclusive segment that people can join us for on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, Substack, and of course Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. For people who are normally viewing on John E. Hoover, thank you for doing that. The video will be on there shortly. Sorry for this mistake.
It's 2 weeks. People get used to it. Now
Did
they're
that happen
used to
last
it.
week as well? I'm sorry, because when we get crazed on
Same
the
thing.
build-up, I forget to do it.
All right, so let's go to the next slide, and we'll show everybody what we're doing.
I just got
So-
reprimanded.
No, just
I'm kidding.
just keeping track. All right, so here, this is the video that we're going to focus on tonight. So what we're going to do is look at, this is the most viewed video that I have.
Ooh.
Um,
Oh, wow.
actually,
Look
it's
at
this,
that, dude. That's
actually
good
second
numbers.
most. There's another one. There's another one that's hidden right now, which is the most viewed, and that's the one where the SUV gets shot on the wrong side.
With lasers on
But
it?
with lasers, yeah. So the laser targets it, it gets shot. You see a bullet hole on the side of the SUV. That's got a few more views than this one, about 250,000.
Why did you
But
take
it's
that one
hidden.
down? It was getting
I
struck?
don't know. I no, I think that there might have been um a moment in it where I got something wrong. And so if there's something wrong, I take them down. So I don't know. I'll take a look at it, and we'll see if next week we can take a second look. There might be another one that I put up that doesn't have as many views of the SUV where I fixed it, and it
Ah,
has like 80,000 views or something. So I think that's what it is. But this one that we're going to look at tonight, this is the second most viewed. It's the most viewed video you can find on the Johnny Hoover channel. You can sort the channel by popular. And when you do that, this is going to be the one that comes up. And that's what Jason and I are going to do when we get over to the patron only portion of the show. Because this is official LVMPD body cam footage, Axon cameras, synchronized. And the question is this evidence that would warrant an inquiry into potential cover-up activity at the Las Vegas field office of the FBI? Could we launch an inquiry? So
you'd
that's
need
sort of the
Congress
hypothetical.
to do it.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know. So that's my hypothetical. I'm not necessarily, it's hypothetical and rhetorical. I'm not necessarily looking for an answer in the moment. I'm saying let's put the evidence on the table
Yeah.
and let the audience decide. Let's have the audience figure out, based on this, how would we open an inquiry into reopening the investigation? Because apparently Stephen Paddock, the evidence is, indicates that it's not necessarily what was reported in the mainstream news, not what you're reading on Wikipedia. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the official body cam footage to see, did something else happen than what you've been told? That's it. And we're going to do that together. So let's jump ahead to the next slide, because there's a couple interesting things that happened this week. One of which I shared with my patrons, and that is the story of the resurrection. That was
Oh,
the link
yeah.
that I sent you. That was the link I sent you. So the story of the resurrection of the 1918 influenza virus is gone. So I think I sent you a link to the original
So we could see it
story at
gone.
at the CDC, and you would see this. You would see, oops, it's not here. And then we could paste it into archive.org, the time
Oh, but
machine.
wait a minute.
And yeah,
It got to it on another link. Here is this. Maybe
Mm-mm.
they just changed the link.
No, it's a different story.
Oh, really?
They change the content of the story. They don't tell you all of the gory details in that version that they did in the version that I had.
Huh. I got to
So
get that link.
this version is the the big version. This is the one I read this on a bedtime story, and you will not see it at the CDC anymore, but you can see it when you use the Internet Time Machine, the Wayback Machine, archive.org, which Jason and I use rather frequently to find things that people are trying to hide. So that was actually the tool that I used to find the documents at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine.
Interesting.
And yeah, so the CDC, I guess, got tired of me sharing this document on Twitter 2, 3, 5, 10 times a day, and using it to educate people as to what they had been up to, and decided that, well, if there's going to be a story about it, we need to probably water it down or something. Now, I don't know that that's what happened. I'm speculating. But apparently they needed the disk space or something,
Right.
because this document, they had to get rid of it
That's like
and
40 kilobytes.
come up Yeah, and come up with another version and put it somewhere else. It's like,
Okay.
why would you do that?
So here we're live on the CDC's website, and sure enough, that link is dead. I'm just going to copy the link and go to archive.org.
There you go. Now, I want you to think for a minute what this means. It means that in every tweet where I linked that document,
it's now gone.
It's now showing a 404 error or whatever it is. It's now, you see all it.
So here's September 2nd. That's a couple days ago. It's gone.
That's the last
now let's
crawl.
go back to the last snapshots. September 2nd, we go back. Okay, it was there on the 27th, and now they've, wow.
Right.
So it's just recently that they've taken it away.
Yeah, yeah. Now keep in mind, again, I shared that document regularly on Twitter with live links to it. So now all those tweets, 1,500 tweets, 3,000 tweets, I've got over 40,000 tweets. And the resurrection of the 1918 virus is one of the cornerstones of my research.
And
so
also one of the most shocking things they could possibly do. It's like, what?
So what is the need to get rid of the story? Did they need the 40 kilobits of storage? Was it really necessary?
It helps screw
so
you
now
up.
Think about the net impact of this is that all those tweets now have a dead link.
And people see it and say, oh, this is crazy,
Right.
nonsense.
Cuckoo stuff. Right. He's linking to crap. There's nothing here. Nicely played, you dicks. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Well,
all right,
I mean, this is it's not unbelievable because it's become so par for the course, but it is so outrageous that they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there we go. Next slide. Okay.
I don't know that we've gotten an update on how many people were missing and how many people were dead in Maui. I don't know if the numbers have changed.
Oh, we had a good question, John. Somebody was asking how, they haven't even been able to count how many dead people there are and get them water and stuff like that. How'd they get all this fence stuff there so quickly and set up?
I think he probably called the same guys that did the fencing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, he's got a guy.
Yeah, he's got a connection. Yeah, he's
got a fence guy.
Yeah, I know.
I have an opaque fence guy.
Yeah. And we're going to double it up too. All right,
2 minutes, and then we're going over to the sponsor exclusive section.
All right.
So
then we have to show. All right, so we're going to have to show people 10 slides in 2 minutes.
Oh.
Last week we talked about how the FBI went in and killed this guy who said, "I'm going to go clean my gun."
Right.
And the FBI showed up at his house, kicked the door in, and shot him and killed him. And then we went to the next slide. Boom, boom, boom. And we found out that they did the same thing in another place with another guy. And this was a veteran, and they kicked the door in and they killed this guy.
Crazy.
And we said, well, what the hell are you guys doing? What is this? This isn't Vietnam. We'll go to the next slide. Now we said, well, wait a second. Didn't they also kick in the door of this family back in Alaska? And there was the wrong house.
Whoa.
Yeah, wrong house. Let's go to the next slide. Wrong house. Wow. Sorry. What about when they destroyed everything?
Refuses
and they said,
to pay?
Yeah. Come on, that's not our fault.
What
Just
the hell is
we
that
kicked in
about?
your door and we broke everything and we shot your dog. We're not gonna pay for that. Go to the next slide. Now they kicked in this guy. They raided Orange County. FBI did. Wrong house.
Wow. Good work, FBI.
So now wait a second. Wrong house. When you get a CCW, what they teach you is that if you think your life is in jeopardy, you're allowed to use deadly force. And if you're in your house and there's a bunch of guys just yelling DEA and they're kicking your doors in, and you're like, what the? How are you not feeling like you're at a threat? And how do you know it's really them with what happened in Haiti? These guys are out of their minds. Go to the next slide. They did it in Boston to an airline pilot. They kicked in an airline pilot's door. These guys
this is Atlanta, which is Boston.
And there's another one. There's another
Paso,
one, and another one.
Atlanta,
Oh, yeah.
Florida.
It doesn't stop. It's a never-ending list of them
Wow.
going to the wrong house, the wrong room in the hotel.
Wow. Oh, they injured a
Don't
cat.
these guys, they're going to walk in somewhere, somebody's going to blow their heads off. How do they think this is okay?
Wow.
I called attention to the fact that Mark Esper was Secretary of Defense, and that we were losing more military members in training than in combat. And I pleaded with the president to get rid of Mark Esper, and he did. I don't know that I had any impact on it, but he got rid of Mark Esper, and I was pleading. I said, come on, more people are dying in training than in combat? You can't get more incompetent than that. Well, I'm looking at this Christopher Wray's FBI breaking into the wrong house again and again and
so
again and killing people and shooting people. I'm trying to understand the difference between this and the Stasi.
No, there is none. Actually, they have a lot more resources than the Stasi ever had. John, I hate to interrupt you, but we are at the point that we've got to head over to the sponsor exclusive segment. So we're going to talk about this more. And people can join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Don't miss the subscriber exclusive. We'll be back in just 5 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.